I call the October 1st, 2024 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. I'm going to ask on the clerk to do the roll call.
Chairman Morgan.
Here.
Vice Chairman Fuller.
Here.
Commissioner McClendon. Commissioner Chance.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
At this time, I'm going to ask Dwayne Hack to come up and do our invocation and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow for prayer, please. Let's all stand. Let's have prayer. Dear Lord, we just take time and, Lord, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity, Lord, to be a voice in our community. I thank you, Lord, for Carroll County and what it means. Lord, I thank you for each member here that's here tonight from our commissioners. I pray that you'll give them wisdom. Lord, you give them integrity and character. Lord, help us in all we do, Lord, to glorify you. Lord, I thank you, Lord, for that. You know, we are residents of Carroll County, but then we're residents of Georgia and America, and I thank you, Lord, for this country. And I pray, Lord, you give wisdom to our leaders, Lord. Help them during this turbulent time, Lord, to make biblical, godly, principled decisions in all that they do. We ask all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Let's face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. At this time, I'll look for a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Motion carries 7-0.
This time, I'll look for a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 1st Board of Commissioners work session, the Board of Commissioners meeting from August the 6th, and the Board of Commissioners executive session minutes from August the 6th, and the Board of Commissioners special call meeting from August 22nd, all these in 2024.
Madam Chairman, I was not here for 3 of those meetings, so I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
Motion to approve items 6.1 through 6.4. Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Motion carries 6-0.
At this time, we have a special presentation. This is the 26th anniversary of West Georgia Right to Life. And so I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Georgia Right to Life is a Christian nonprofit organization incorporated in 1971 and serves as the oldest pro-life organization in Georgia. And whereas the organization, the West Georgia Right to Life, is one of the 19 chapters of Georgia Right to Life, faithfully serving Carroll, Douglas, Haralson, and Heard counties for those that have no voice and are the most vulnerable among us. Whereas West Georgia Right to Life upholds philosophy affirming that personhood is established at the earliest biological beginning, which is fertilization, and extends until natural biological death, and possesses inherent value and deserves recognition and protection under the law. And whereas the 26th anniversary of West Georgia Right to Life marks a significant milestone in their ongoing mission of advocating for equal rights and equal protection of the preborn, providing a voice for the voiceless, and striving to protect life at all stages, while inspiring others to join this noble and important work. And whereas Dwayne Hack, founder and president of West Georgia Right to Life, began his pro-life journey over 30 years ago when the seed was planted in his heart and soul concerning the Right to Life movement. Born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, Dwayne Hack traveled the country in bakery sales. Then he and his wife, Karen, of 39 years, came home to Carroll County, where they raised 2 children. They now have 4 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. And whereas we recognize and appreciate Dwayne Hack for his visionary leadership, unwavering commitment, and foundational role in establishing and guiding this vital organization, West Georgia Right to Life. And whereas we commend Dwayne Hack and West Georgia Right to Life for upholding biblical values, encouraging educational development, and advocating for political engagement in legislation. And whereas, And now therefore, I, Michelle Morgan, Chairman of the Carroll County Board of Commissioners, do hereby congratulate and honor West Georgia Right to Life on the occasion of its 26th anniversary in Carroll County, and encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing this organization and acknowledging the importance of preserving life of the preborn. And witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand on this first day of October in the year of our Lord, 2024. So, Dwayne, would you please come forward to accept your proclamation? Go back a little bit. At this time, we'll move into the public comments. Public comments are an opportunity for the public to address the Commission with any issues or concerns they may have. All remarks should be directed to the chairman and not to individual commissioners, staff, or citizens in attendance. Members of the public shall not make inappropriate or offensive comments. Any individual who violates the rules of decorum may be removed from the meeting. At this time, the board will not comment, nor will the board take any action on the comments, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. There was a sign-up sheet in back. There was no names on it this time. Is there anybody at this point that would like to come and make a public comment? I'll ask a second time if there's anyone here for public comments. Well, seeing and hearing none, we will move into our business session. The first thing we have is Associate Juvenile Court Judge, a part-time contracted position, and we have Juvenile Court Judge Tom Palmer here to present this to us.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Commissioners, to start out with, I apologize to y'all because I'm asking for this at this time in what would be a mid-year decision. I had talked to Ms. Searcy over time in coming up I wanted to start next budget term talking to y'all about the need in the future of, as the court grows, responsibility grows, as more hearings are required in court by different legislation, that I did foresee that there would be an additional need for judicial duties in the juvenile court. I did not expect it now. This request comes for two reasons. One, because of a sudden increase in what I need to cover as a judge, and two, because of additional funds that are going to be available, and that is because of the circuit split. The creation of the West Georgia Judicial Circuit will mean what now is a judicial circuit that has 5 juvenile court judges will mean we'll have 2 circuits, one of which will have 4 juvenile court judges, and one, the new West Georgia Circuit, will have me, assuming that I get reappointed to do this job, but one juvenile full-time judge. And so I gave in what I sent in some numbers as to what right now Carroll has, and then numbers for Heard County and what the increase would be, and then kind of comparing that to other counties, other judgeships, which already have 2 judges, and except for Paulding County, and there's a reason for that, we already have as much or more than what those counties have, and will have much more when I take over Heard. And it's not that Heard is a great, huge amount of cases, but it are cases, and they have to be heard. And I grew up in Heard County, born there, raised there. I'm looking forward to being able to get down there and know a lot of the people. But it will take away from some of the things I do in Carroll County. And so it creates the need for it now rather than something that can build up in the future. But the second part of that is, with the split of the circuit, there is a grant, it's called, where the state of Georgia gives money to the circuits and the counties in the circuits to help them. It doesn't cover it, but to help them pay the cost of juvenile court judges. And right now for the Coweta Circuit as a whole, based on the number of Superior Court judges, that amount just recently went up to $200,000 total. But again, because of the split in the 5 counties, Carroll and Heard are only together receiving a percentage of that. And these are numbers that Ms. Searcy and I have gone over, and I got it in writing from the state as to what that is. The amount for Carroll County up till now has been $45,000 and some odd dollars out of that, and Heard County has been $7,000, so a little over $52,000 coming to the 2. With the split of the 2 circuits, each circuit will receive $100,000. The minimum amount a circuit can get, regardless of the number of Superior Court judges, is $100,000. So the new West Georgia Circuit, as of January 1, would be entitled by itself to $100,000. And based on the legislation that most of the money is split 90-10 between Carroll and Heard, Carroll would get $90,000, Heard 10. And so that increase, where the circuit was getting 52 to 100, obviously is about $48,000. What I'm proposing is to create a position of a part-time contract basis, not employee of the county, no benefits, but a part-time position in relation of what already the county is doing, similar to an associate magistrate court judge who has a contract with certain requirements. And I would like that judge to guarantee under that contract to cover 2 days a week, and then have additional time guaranteed to cover emergency hearings or other, if they had to special set something that was a longer term, additional hours. To basically be a half of what would be a full-time judgeship. And the amount I'm asking for to do that is 1/2 of my current base salary, which with add-ons and all is approximately $28,000. So $64,000 a contract to try and find somebody who is willing to do that, to meet the qualifications, which would be to be a resident of the circuit, to have lived in the circuit for at least 3 years, to be a licensed attorney, to have practiced at least 5 years, and we'll see about that. But so that I can have additional time to do administrative work, draw orders and all, which I will admit, because of the caseload, I've gotten behind. It takes me longer to get out long orders than it used to. And then to cover Heard County on the days that I have to go there. And so using the additional revenue of $48,000 plus, there are a couple of things in my budget that I would like to frankly do away with and move toward this. Right now, I have a $4,000 budget line item for medical clearance. Because of the way it works now, and I hate to say this in front of Brad Robinson, but the sheriff has started covering that because they lump it together with the adults. I mean, it's a really small portion. So they now have it covered under a contractor who's local and it's cheaper. And so we've talked about it. They're now covering that. I don't cover that. I haven't had a bill for it. And so I would say I don't need that money. Take that out of the budget. Take out the money you already pay for me to get what we call a pro tem judge, somebody to cover when I'm out of town or on vacation, because the contract judge would do that. Put those together, and that all leads to, the exact numbers are there that we've talked about. But that comes, to get to the 64, a difference just for the half year I'm asking for first, from January 1 to July 1, of $587.48. And then next year, assuming that y'all agreed to put it in the budget again at the full 1 year at $64,000, again, it would be a little more than twice that because of the pro tem judge would be a little bit different because of what I have to cover, but we're still talking about probably less than $2,000 of a net effect on the revenues of Carroll County. So it would be an increase in my budget, but the majority of it, $48,000, would be covered by new revenues that would be coming into the circuit. And we have confirmed that. It's kind of, I know y'all are, and I am too, wondering about the new circuit and how it'll be funded and who the people will be. The money for the juvenile court judge grants is separate. It's already in place. And so the Coweta Circuit is already approved for $200,000. It's just rather than going to all the 5 counties where, frankly, Carroll and Heard, and I've talked to some of our legislators before this again, the formula to do that, it doesn't benefit Carroll and Heard. But with the split, Carroll and Heard will automatically get $100,000 of what's already budgeted. I'd be open to any questions. I know it's again, I thought this would be something I'd be talking to you about moving toward over a few years, but good and bad good with the revenue side, I'm asking for it now.
I'll look for a motion and a second to then begin the questions and the discussions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So at this time, Commissioners, do y'all have any questions for Judge Palmer?
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
And this may be more for our county attorney, Stacy, I don't know, but since only $1,000 of county funds are involved, especially now, can anyone explain, I just haven't asked this before, and it just is a question I have, how come the board is involved with $1,000 approval when the discretion of the chairman is $35,000? So I just want to know that technicality, or do we have to be involved because of the...
It's because it's the contract, we enter into the contract for the full amount, but get reimbursed through other sources of funding would be a reason, but also to create this position.
Okay.
It's not an employee head we're creating, but just to approve the contract. It's a new contract.
Okay.
I would say too, not to, but when I originally talked about this, I am, and to make this clear, because I don't want anything, I'm asking for an additional $60,000 in my budget. I'm saying there are going to be revenues to cover that, but it will be increasing my budget by $60,000. I'm just, we've talked to Ms. Searcy about how the county is going to get reimbursed for part of that. So,
Okay.
I customarily come to y'all when we get grants of $200,000, and it's going to be 100% reimbursed, but still,
Thank you.
Yes.
Second question, since the position, I guess, will begin January 1 of '25?
that's my plan, or soon after that
Yeah.
is, yeah, somebody's.
That's not too far away. So when will this position be advertised, or when will we put it out there for?
Couple of things need to happen, and so assuming that this goes well tonight, I'm going to get together, I guess, with the chairman and then especially the county attorney, because I've talked to Heard County. One thing that needs to happen is an intergovernmental agreement between Carroll and Heard, where Heard will take the money they get from the state, and rather than give it to me as a supplement extra money, they'll pay it to Carroll County so that Carroll can use it for that. So I think that needs to be put in place. I've talked to the chairman in Heard County. I've actually talked also to the newly elected chairman who'll come in January 1 about that, and they're in favor of this and understand it. And then we've got to get the contract together, but because I want to make sure when we advertise it, we know exactly what we're asking for. So frankly, if it's after January 1 that it finally gets done, I mean, it's on day one, I'm not going to be overburdened, but it's a long explanation of, I don't know, I want to get it in the advertisement before the end of the year, but first I want to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before I start offering it out there.
This got a question after talking with you today a little bit.
Yes, sir.
So your advertising, is that going to be word of mouth advertising, newspaper? or are you
No,
gonna try to-
there's no, I would say, there's no legal requirement. The position, it's the juvenile court judge for associate judges. I'm appointed by the Superior Court judge. This is an associate judge, which would be appointed by the juvenile court judge and serve at the pleasure of the juvenile court judges. But my plan is to advertise this in the legal organ of Carroll County, to post it on whatever we do for positions to get it out there. Because one worry I have is I want to make sure, and actually, this will probably be more effective to get it out to lawyers. I'm going to ask the county bar to post it. They've got an email list that we all get. Every lawyer, frankly, in the region gets an email, and ask them when we finally come up with what the terms are to put it out there, and then have a deadline date to submit resumes. I want to make sure they have past experience in this, and then have interviews myself. So that's my plan, is to put it out there in several different ways, have set deadlines, and then have a schedule of interviewing anybody that meets the qualifications.
So this doesn't fall under appointment. This does not fall under appointment. It falls under actual solicitation and.
Well, yeah, I think it falls under appointment,
Okay.
but I want to go through the steps of an actual solicitation on this.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I think that's just the best way to do it. And the reason I want to do it, the juvenile code for the appointment of me has a specific advertising time and dates for appointment of a juvenile court judge. For an associate juvenile court judge, it doesn't say that, but I want to go through the same steps, plus, because, yeah, I think that it should be in the code, and I think it was just an oversight to not do it for associate judges. So, yes, sir, I think it's 4 weeks in the legal organ at least, so I plan to do what I went through for my job, for this job also, plus put it out there just to get as wide as a field as I can, because I think one of the things is the question of who may want this, in that what I'm going to require and ask for is going to be difficult for some practicing attorneys to do, even if they were interested in doing this.
Judge Palmer, thank you for
Yes, sir.
being here today and for speaking with me yesterday. I know we went through a good bit of this information. I don't want to rehash everything.
So,
One question and concern that I relayed and I'd like for you to expound upon today is, we think of an elected official or someone that's a department head, they may have to work 10 extra hours or do whatever they have to do to make something happen. And so when we're talking about contract labor here, will you have something built into the contract that will deal with, you had to bring this person on to make things happen, And if all of a sudden there's 3 juvenile shootings that happen in a community and you've got, this going on and things have to be met, you have to have hearings and so forth, that we're not going to run into a situation where that person that's brought on to make ends meet is all of a sudden going back to a contract to say, well, I'm technically only supposed to work so many hours, or if you want me to work those hours, you're going to have to add $20,000 more to the budget. So how will you balance that act from a contract perspective?
And that's another reason I want to make sure we have the contract in place with the language before we advertise and get somebody on. But yeah, I do not see this as and so don't want to say it's 2.5 days every week, because we will get into times when there will be no need, but some weeks, not even the 2 days, but some weeks that they're going to be required more. And so to be clear of what is expected of them, and I think that has to be built into the contract. Now, that we may get into something about, something gets to be unreasonable or something like that, or I've already exceeded what I think of as half-time. But to me, and this, I'll talk to the county attorney and make sure it's built into the contract, is another reason to do it contract rather than salary is we're not talking about necessarily you've got to stay under so many hours a week to be part-time, that we contract with you as an outside contractor to do this job, and this is the requirements of the job, and if you don't do it, then you're not qualifying for it. And I think we can do that. But yes, there are going to be weeks when they will exceed 2.5 days. They will have to special set cases that are assigned to them. That's where I run into problems, is I can cover the cases, but when I have a case that needs a full day or 2-day or 3-day trial, then it's hard to find the time to do that. But they're going to have to do that because I'm going to assign them cases and they're going to have to cover the cases. So,
okay. And thank you for that information. So you're not expecting any additional support staff within the department either? So
no, and that's another reason to do this. And to be clear, I think a worry would be when I started thinking about this, and sometimes when I talked about it, I wanted to talk over time about another judge. That would also maybe include space for that judge. That's not true. This isn't somebody to do hearings while I'm also doing hearings, so it won't be 2 courtrooms. It will be to do things in Carroll County while I'm heard, or to do things in the courtroom while I'm in my office. So no extra facilities. Another reason to do it contract is I do not expect to provide office space to whoever the judge is. I expect them to be a practice attorney and have their own office space. I would give them somewhere, a smaller office conference room that they would be theirs to on the days, and I have a space for that, but not to give them extra space. And then no support staff other than the clerks. I mean, I don't have an assistant. I'm not going to give them one.
Sure.
But the reason for that is we have clerks on staff the clerk who's in the courtroom with me and does all the things I need to do and gets the orders ready and prints the calendar will be the same clerk who's in the courtroom with them. And so there's no request for extra staff.
And as far as any agencies that would be in support of what you do in your court, so for instance, when we added the second state court position, we had to think about court-appointed attorneys additional. We had to think about the solicitor's office. So there's no other support agencies that are dependent on your functioning, that if you started being able to produce more cases, so to speak, in layman's terms, that it's not going to affect just thinking about long-term budget. And I don't need a detailed, it's basically just a yes or no if you're thinking that you're not going to need that, or yes, that could be a possibility in the near future.
No, not in what my plan is for this.
Okay. And you would have the ability, I guess, to terminate the contract, and I know we haven't gotten to the specifics of the contract yet, but if you had someone that you thought was going to work out great, and then 2 months into it, this was a terrible idea, or it's not working out for whatever reason, I mean, we're not going to be tied into something that's long-term.
The statute says they serve at the pleasure of the juvenile court judge. I assume when we do a contract, there'll probably be some specifics as to how that's done, but I don't. But yes, under the statute, it makes it clear that
Sure.
that could be terminated by me.
And I guess my final question or point is, we've been talking, several other commissioners, about the process that you'll go through to hire, and
Right.
you are an elected, I think, elected.
Appointed.
You're appointed, but I think you understand being elected or even appointed, the responsibility to the constituents
Yes.
and the public and what they expect. And I know that you'll do a thorough job in making sure that we look at all aspects of how that position is filled and ultimately who will serve in that capacity.
Yes,
to
and
serve
I
the
want it
public.
to be a transparent process and a full process. And yes, I do not want to cause issues for myself, my court, or the county in this process. So,
Thank you for the work that you do.
all right, thank you.
And Judge, I do have one more question as we
Yes,
talk
sir.
through this thing. So I know you said 2.5 days, and it may be more or less, but $64,000, you have the work there to keep this individual busy, make it worthwhile having that at 60?
Yes, I could right now have somebody to come in for 2 full days a week, and I know exactly what I would like them to do and cover, and then what I would do with that time. But yes, I'll be honest, Mondays and Wednesdays right now, I would like to turn over to somebody else, and those 2 days are something that with Heard County coming on, I need to be doing other things on those days. If it doesn't happen, we'll cover it. I mean, but right now, yeah, 2 days a week I could have somebody come on, and I would still be there all day doing other stuff. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions or discussion, I'll ask all those in favor. Any opposed?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Judge Palmer.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you do for our court, too.
Our second item is 2 more school resource officers, and we have Chief Deputy Brad Robinson from the Sheriff's Office to present this item to us.
Thank you, Chairman, Board of Commissioners, for allowing me to be here. The judge probably didn't know I was going to be in the audience when he was talking about the money, but I've worked with Judge Palmer for a long time, a lot of respect for him, and I appreciate the work he does. But, you know, in June, the Board of Education contacted us about putting more school resource officers in the school. At that time, we had 8 officers in the school. We basically split the salary of those officers, of those 8 officers, and this is like deja vu when Major Craig Dodson come to you guys about a month or 2 ago and said that the school is willing to fund 2 more officers. We identified 2 more schools, which was Central and Temple Middle School campus up there where Providence is next door. We've put officers in those schools. They're fully funding those officers. Well, unfortunately, Barrow County had a school shooting recently. Drew a lot of attention to school safety. School board came back to the sheriff and asked for 2 more officers in the school. And of course, we're not willing to fund those officers, but they are. So like the judge said, I'm asking for permission to raise our budget. I've spoke to Alicia briefly about this, and be allowed to hire 2 additional school resource officers. And at this time, we're looking at Bowden Middle School, which is on North Jonesville Road, kind of a, I won't say rural area, but it is outside the city limits. And we're looking at Sharps Creek, which is on 113 going toward Temple. So they've committed to $87,450 for each officer. That will definitely pay their salary. They don't make that much, most definitely, but that's benefits, some overtime, and we're looking for some equipment to be paid for with that. And I think the major had mentioned about a stipend that they were given $6,000 a year. School board was. That stipend will also go toward these 2 officers. So I'm asking for permission to be able to hire those 2 additional officers to be reimbursed by the Board of Education.
I'll look for a motion and a second, and then we'll begin questions and discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone have questions for Brad?
Chief, it looks like you covered everything like you did, like Major Dotson did before about covering the full salary, having some additional money there for the supplement that can deal with, I guess, uniforms or anything equipment-wise, and then also, obviously, if we are handling raises on our end, that the school
Right.
board is aware that there'll need to be some things built in or adjusted as we move forward. And so, based off that mirroring the details we went in prior, being very similar, I'm good with this.
Yeah, we have talked to the school, even coming into July of this year when we anticipated a raise. I talked with the Board of Education, told them what I thought that would be. They were in agreement to up the cost there. So I anticipate that to continue with our relationship.
I got a question for you. As we talked earlier a while ago, so what is it, does this handicap you in any way moving forward when you come before us to ask for deputies? And also, is this a long-term commitment from the school board where they cover the salary of this employee from now on out?
Well, this brings the number of officers in the school in the county to 12. If this is approved, we are going to have have a lot of conversation with the school because the sheriff not only has obligations for school safety, but there's a lot of other areas that the sheriff may focus on. So we'll be coming to you guys on staffing analysis, certainly, before next budget time to talk about additional deputies if needed. And I'm definitely going to look at the school board to continue to fully fund these 4 positions because we do need deputies in other areas.
Okay, thank you for what you, Brad.
Couple quick questions, Brad.
Yes, sir.
So 12, big picture, 12 SROs versus how many schools? Some numbers.
I believe there's 24.
Oh, okay, okay. And I know this topic is probably thoroughly covered by school board and y'all at the sheriff's office and so on, but I mean, it's sad we even need to, tragic actually, that we even need to talk about this, but what other things, in other words, an SRO intervenes in a shooting at the time the shooting occurs. What preventive measures for detecting metals and that kind of thing coming into the school are in place or will be in place? And I know we don't want our schools to turn into some entry into the day-long prison,
Right.
but what do you feel as far as other measures that?
Well, there's a school resource officer class put on by the Public Safety Training Center that we require our guys to go to. But one thing that we pride ourselves on is it's kind of like where we go around and check the doors, making sure that those doors are locked, and we submit a report to the administrators there. We're not there to try to teach the children anything. That's what the teachers are there, but we are there to make sure that the school is safe. So we continuously go around the school, checking doors, checking windows, looking for suspicious activity in the parking lot. I mean, that's 24/7 is what the officer there when they're on the campus that they'll do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Chief, is this going to affect your manpower any?
No, fortunately, we're in a good position. Right now, we're basically full. We've got several good applications that are in. We've got 4 in our mandate school right now that's come out of the jail. So we've never been better. Probably for the past 15 years, we've had multiple openings. That's why I haven't asked for additional personnel. But you guys that has given the employees in Carroll County those raises to bump us up to where we are. We've got good training, we've got a good equipment, and we're getting those applicants to come in.
That's good.
There's no further questions or discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Our third item tonight is recreation outdoor lighting and RFP. We have Thad Ferguson, our recreation director, here to present this item to us.
Good evening, board. Thank you for the time. So we have an outdoor light project that we are looking to get approved. So we have about 449 metal halide bulbs and fixtures that are part of the original complex when it was built. So we're looking to transfer those over to LEDs. Obviously, this will be a good upfront cost, but a cost-saving method over the next few years for sure. So we created RFP. We had about 13 companies that attended the pre-bid meeting that we held, and then 7 of those companies decided to put in a full bid on the project. We had a committee of 3 that included myself, Jim Lauren, who is our maintenance guy at the rec, and then also Davey Spradlin, who's on the maintenance side for Public Works. And so we all sat down as a committee along with Miss Sunday Cook over in Purchasing, and we went through all 7 companies, all their bids, minus the price. The price was sent in a separate sealed envelope, so we had no idea of the price for the projects on these bids. We spent a good, 3 or 4 hours plus some weekend work going over each bid, looking over the scope of the project, making sure everything that was supposed to be submitted was submitted, and then we narrowed it down to the top 2 companies based on our grading scale that was provided by Ms. Stacy and the county attorney. So our top 2 companies were Musco Sports Lighting and PSC Energy. So once we determined our top 2, we held another Zoom meeting, did some reference checks. So we did reference checks first, talked to some of the other places that these companies had worked before. Then we held a final Zoom meeting with the top 2 companies to ask questions, to finalize. And then we scored again, and based on the committee's score, the committee is recommending that for the project that we would go with Musco Sports Lighting. The price for the project is $1.25 million. So we already had $1 million set aside for this project from capital improvements. And then we would like to, if you remember, a year and a half ago, we did a new multi-purpose area for our younger kids, and part of those funds that we had asked for were for lights. So we had taken those lights out of that project to save some money, because that area would not need lights just because of the timing that they would be over there. So there was $193,000 that were left over from that project that we are asking to be reallocated for this project, and then to also take an additional $57,000 from our current SPOST account to cover the difference of the $250 for the project. But just from a committee standpoint, again, without knowing the score price, some of the things that were important to the committee, Musco had 48 years of service compared to 8. The project manager that would be working with us with Musco was 20 years versus 3 years. The same fixtures that Musco was offering was the same fixtures that they had put in at all their other locations across the nation, around the state. There were different fixtures being offered by the other company. And one of the big things for us, as you guys know, we have Stonecrest subdivision, which sits on our border. So there's a lot of houses that border 3 of our fields. So part of our RFP was that the foot candle, which is just a rating to rate the light level along that property line, our spec was that it had to be 0.25 or less. So that's very, very minuscule. So Musco had come in at 0.03, and the other company was between 0.7 and 2.2, so a little bit higher than what the RFP had requested. And I tell people this all the time: when you buy a house in Stonecrest, you kind of know what you're getting into. If you're buying a house or building a house near the rec department, you're going to hear noise, you're going to see lights. But with this project, if we can do something to help our neighbors with less light going from our property to their backyard, that would be a huge plus. And Musco offered that in a greater way. And then also, it was about a roughly a $50,000 to $60,000 savings a year versus $40,000 to $45,000 savings based on the fixtures that would be installed. So again, based on the committee's score and the committee's recommendation, we would like for the board to recommend Musco Sports Lighting for our sports project.
I'll look for a motion in a second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, at this time, Commissioners, is there any discussion or questions for Thad?
Mr. Ferguson, thank you for
Yes, sir.
being here today, and thank you for speaking with me earlier. There was a lot of detail that went into this, and as far as trying to figure out exactly the differences in the companies. There was a pretty good price spread in the bid process, in the bids that came in that I looked at, which always makes me go back to look at the RFP and figure out were there a lot of questions in one area or areas that there may not have been clear direction. I'm not saying that's the case here. It's just one thing I tried to go back and look at. One of the things with Musco, and as I speak, please correct me if I'm wrong or confirm if what I'm saying is correct. But one of the things with the Musco, with the company that you're recommending, was that the rails, if you will, the flat slat is built, I guess, in the factory with the light housing. And in that, the wiring and everything is enclosed in that. So in the RFP process, you stated that all exposed wiring would have to be closed in, if you will, but that, I guess, is a superior product or a superior design versus if something was just bolted onto an existing slat or a rail, and then you had to put a secondary, if you will, type of system around covering the wiring. Correct. So my point is, it sounds like this particular company has got a superior design in protecting the housing and the wiring. Is that a fair statement?
Very, very fair. So basically,
Okay.
your rail is a cross arm. That's what the fixture attaches to. So from what we gather, they build their equipment in Iowa per specs for their project. And yeah, so their light kind of sits here with the cross arm here. So any wiring goes directly from the fixture directly into that cross arm. So it's not exposed to anything. You don't have the pigtails or any extra coming directly from the fixture, just hanging out, and then eventually weeding its way back to the pole. So yes,
Sure.
it's a
Okay.
little extra secure from that standpoint.
Okay. This particular company, as you stated, had been in business a little over 50 years. I think most of the other companies were around 6 or 7. Not saying that's not adequate, but there was a pretty big span between the differences in the companies.
There was. Musco's been in business for 48, and you're right, the others anywhere from 7 to 15 on average.
Okay. And on the warranty, I think you all had expressed in the RFP, and it was kind of across the board universal with most of the companies, a 10-year.
Correct.
Is that correct? And
That
I
is
think
correct.
that covered the labor, the
Parts.
manufacturer's warranty,
Yes, sir.
everything.
10 years, parts, labor, equipment, any lift that they would take to get out there to fix it. Anything associated with that light that messes up would be covered in that 10-year warranty.
And so what we are doing here, and a part of the contract, is they are having to announce who their installer would be. And
Correct.
so both companies have done that. In this particular company that you're recommending in Musco, there is a local company to the West Georgia area that we have experience with other municipalities and counties around. Is that correct?
That is correct. So Musco has done a lot of work in Georgia and a lot of work in the West Georgia area, specifically Carroll County Schools, Heard County Recreation, Coweta County Recreation, Spalding County. So they typically team up with a local installer, which, yes, West Georgia provider is in the area. They have done work for us before in the past. But again, that's knowledge that we did not have prior to any scoring. But yes, they've done all the work locally for those projects.
Okay. And in the terminology, I guess light spillover is the correct terminology. So Musco exceeded the minimum requirements that you were seeking in the RFP.
That is correct.
And in analyzing that particular point, I would think that's probably the only line item, if you will, if you want to call it that the secondary company did not meet. but they pretty much met the other qualifications, not saying that the product that they were putting forth was necessarily as good as Musco's, but they didn't fail, if you will, any other line items in the RFP. Is that a fair statement? Except that particular.
It is, yes, sir, very fair statement.
That particular area.
Yes, sir.
So, two comments I want to make. The first comment, we've all seen the devastation and destruction from the hurricanes that we've had in the local area. I did reach out to our insurance carrier today, and Ms. Blackman, I know that when the contract times comes that you'll speak with Mr. Jennings, but I want to make sure that in between us purchasing, installation, and maybe before we finish installing $1 million worth of lights, God forbid if we had a hurricane or something, that's covered under our policy. One of the things that they recommended to make sure that we had a floating rider with the installation company, which I'm sure we will, but that was specific terminology. I want to make sure that we cover if something were to happen. The other comment I want to make is these RFPs are very difficult in analyzing what you're going to go with. And what I mean by that is you have to look at a budget and you have to try to get the best products you can, but you have to keep in mind the budget. I spoke with some of the members on your committee, especially Mr. Spradlin, who does a lot of the maintenance for Carroll County. There's no question in my mind that the company that you're recommending has a superior light housing assembly because of all the enclosed nature that I think will protect that product. The part that I'm struggling with is that in our RFP, we specifically stated we wanted money to be obviously a paramount consideration as well. Now, we had a proper scoring of that, and I think everything is legit, but I think we have to ask ourselves, do we want the superior product and installation and hopefully longevity, which I do think hands down from my research and your committee's recommendation is Musco, no doubt. But does that equate to over $400,000 worth of additional monies that the secondary company came in at that does not, in my opinion, have the standard spec that Musco does, but they did fail one of the line items, and I think the light spillover is a big deal. Is it enough spillover that it's going to affect the community, or is it just that it didn't meet the specs, but it may not ultimately end up bothering them? I don't know the answer to that. But it's a difficult decision because I think there's no doubt what's presented is the best, but the calculation comes into, is it worth $400,000 more than that secondary bid? And that's kind of where I'm at.
I kind of follow up with Clint there is when you and I talked, and I asked you, did you see $400,000 worth of difference in there? And you assured me that you did, but I'll be honest with you, I'm struggling with that also. That's got to be a big difference for me for $400,000, and so that's just really the concern I got right now.
Understandable. And I think a lot of it goes back, not knowing the price. When we're doing our committee work, the years of service in business, the product they're putting out was important to the committee. Having that longevity of the company, the project manager who's been there for a while, and then, meeting the specs that we put out as well, so.
Would it be worthwhile to take it back to this other company and ask him to match the same fixtures and see what they come up with to see how much difference in that, or is that going to be something that boat's done sailed, I'm assuming, since the prices are out there?
Well, I think the fixtures are two totally different fixtures.
That's what I'm saying. If they went back and quoted with the same fixture, apples for apples, to see what...
I don't know that that's possible.
That's what I wonder. Okay.
Just because I think I think they're made in two separate. This is, I'm trying to just keep it simple. It's just two different fixtures. I don't know the correct answer for that. Besides, it's two different fixtures. And I don't know how you could compare the apples to apples on the fixtures because they are different. Because there's so many
I think what you're stating is to have the exact same fixture quoted with a secondary company, but I think, I'm not an attorney, but the legality part of that would be, how did the two companies submit their proposals? Because some companies may label out exactly what they're charging. Others may say, well, this line item, we're adding A, B, and C into how they're formulating the cost, and if that was not done up front, I don't know that you can go back and separate that without having to rebid.
Yeah, because I mean, out of the seven bids, each light fixture is different. So I know each company has their specific light fixture that they use. So I don't know how that would work either.
Well, I guess my follow-up question, then, I guess simply to you then, this company is worth $400,000 money that you could use somewhere else, that you think you're confident enough that this money is well spent and this is what you want to go with?
I do from a experience standpoint and over time, I do think it is worth the money. Yes, sir.
Well, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
And my main one is what's already been covered, so thank you, fellow commissioners, for handling that. I did want to be convinced about the difference in price, but where is Musco headquartered, or?
They are located in Iowa.
Okay. So, and PSC, where are they?
They've got I think they're either in Atlanta or Macon, one of the two.
Okay.
I know they have, let me see if I've got that information, just to make sure that's clarified.
And so as far as the local subcontractors, if that's the right term, Musco uses local and PSC does not? Is that what you said?
I think PSC does a lot of their install. Sometimes they do it in-house, and sometimes they contract it out. But they did not provide if it was outside of their scope, who would be installing that. So I don't have that information.
So from what I've heard, and I don't know if this is even, I'm just going to get a little more finite, I guess. We did not ask PSC the question of if they could install the other type of rails, whatever. We just took their bid, period.
Say that one more time, make sure I'm understanding the question.
We didn't cover at all a question to Musco, to PSC, if PSC could install those other type of rails or configuration at all that Musco is proposing. Where I'm coming from is the same deal. $400,000 is roughly a third of the cost of the project. So when you get up there, with that much percentage, it kind of makes us open our eyeballs. But we didn't ask the question. Since we didn't ask the question, is it possible to ask the question and at least know that? Or do we not do that? Attorney question.
Was it to ask if they could make that same type product with those same specs?
Yeah.
Ask Musco?
You're talking about the same cross arm.
To ask PSC, yeah.
Right. You can ask that. One thing about the statute I did want to point out, I think the statute says you can try to ask for the best and final offer before the award, but you keep the prices confidential before you do that, so it's hard to ask them to match it at this point, but I think you can ask a specs question, like you could postpone till next month and ask for more information to come back if you wanted to.
Okay. That's my only point, just because it's such a big difference. I'm all for going with durability. It's just, is it worth the price for that? If the other company can do the same thing for, $100,000 more versus $400,000, but then if we didn't even ask the question, that does concern me a little bit. So.
And I'm not sure that it's $400,000 of cross arm. I think it's just the fixture itself.
Yeah.
Is superior, kind of like Mr. Clint said, to the other offer.
Well, I'll leave it up to.
They had looking through the literature along the same lines that Ernie's talking about. These the light fixtures from Musco seem to have a history, been around a long time.
Correct.
Could the same be said for the light fixtures from PSG? I couldn't find any kind of
The,
information about the lights?
the information we have it's scarce, honestly. You know, we asked for references. There was a couple companies in Texas and Arkansas where this particular fixture was put in place. It wasn't put in by PSG, but it was just a secondary reference, so to speak. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. You know, with PSG being a shorter, smaller, younger group, you know, 48 years of experience is important. It kind of outweighs the shortness of the other company, and with no due respect. So I feel like they've done their homework over 48 years to perfect what they do have.
Okay, well, from from what I understand, when they're finished removing fixtures, the only thing that's going to be left is the pole.
Correct.
Okay, that's with Musco.
Correct.
Is it the same with PSG?
So it'll both be the same. So
Strip it down to just the pole.
So PSG will use our cross arms that are
cross-arm.
that are currently there, and Musco, as I stated earlier, they create their own that's built in for their light system itself.
Okay.
But you know, the scope, whichever company wins the bid, 10 feet off the ground, you've got a component box, a junction box. So they'll rewire from that point all the way up to the top of the pole. They'll take off the old lights, and then they'll install the new lights, reconnect, you know, their power source to our power source at that 10-foot, 12-foot junction box, and then everything should work just like it is now, but just better. And more energy efficient as well.
Okay, and Musco's doing the same thing. I mean, there's no more, I know there's underground out there now.
Yeah, there's no overhead. Everything's under.
From the junction box.
Correct, yes. Everybody would be, whatever company it is, would be from that junction box up.
Okay.
Correct.
I feel at this point that for the roughly 1/3 or 33% difference round figures, that I just don't have enough information to convince me that either the other company couldn't do the same thing, or we could somehow get a much less costly job done for roughly the same price. And I mean, congrats to the committee and all that. I just don't feel like, since we didn't even ask the question, I just feel a gap in information, and I probably cannot support the Musco just because of that. If we had asked the question and gotten any more apples comparison, or found out that the apples wasn't possible, then I'd be comfortable.
Mr. Ferguson, if it was the will of the board to postpone this to work with you and our legal counsel to see exactly within the terms of what we legally are able to go back and ask for clarifications at this point, now that bids have been exposed, is that something that, I know no one wants to put anything off another month, but just reading the vibes of the different comments from the board members, is that something that you could live with, or is this an absolute time crunch that you've got half your light bulbs that aren't working and we need to do something?
I mean, we do have, you know, about 130 of the 450 out. So it is pertinent to kind of get it processed. And now I will say that, you know, no work, part of the RFP could be started until November 11th. That's kind of when we finish our fall season. So I guess there is some time between now and, I guess, the next Board of Commissioners meeting, if that is, you know, the second Tuesday of the first Tuesday of the month. There is some wiggle room there to where the board could do that.
So do we need a motion to table this?
I think so. I think you had a motion on the floor already before discussion, so I
Right.
guess you could withdraw that motion or amend it.
Yes.
If you want to. postpone it.
Madam Chairman, at this point, I would like to amend and withdraw my motion of approval that was only given to begin discussions.
So we need a motion to table this.
I need a motion to do something, whether it's to approve, disapprove, or table.
I'll make a motion to table this until a future date now. All right. I'll just make a motion to table this.
Does that need to have a specific time frame?
Well, I think we need to do that in the discussion, when we need to do that.
You can do it either way, but so it's however you want to do it.
Okay, well, let me withdraw my motion. I got a question. Thad's kind of under a time crunch, and I don't want to stretch this out too much. Could we do a special call meeting in 2 weeks? Would you guys be all right with that? Come back in 2 weeks. Would that help you?
That puts us back at the work session, basically, for
Well,
the next meeting,
well.
so.
I know 2 weeks is fall break for schools, and I know I'm out of town that particular week. I don't know if that's,
Well, can we table it to the work session?
We can, or just, like I said, just go ahead and have it at the meeting, which is 4 days later, so, I mean,
Okay, all right. I'll make a motion to table this item until the November board meeting.
Second.
okay, I have a motion and a second to table this item to the November board meeting. Is there any further discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed?
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you, Thad. At this time, we do not have an executive session, and so I'll look for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Motion carries.
Great, meeting is dismissed. Well.